Welcome to the final lab of the course. In this lab we'll cover using the schemes we created or modified in the previous labs to standardize new and existing projects. Let's start with the first exercise. In this we're going to create a new Scrum project by copying the configuration of the Rocketeers app project we previously customized. I've already logged in as Dakota as I need to be an admin to create projects. So let's go and create the new project. Remember, there are quite a few options for creating new projects, but the one we're interested in here is Create with Shared Configuration right at the bottom. Now, as we've already modified the Rocketeers app project to satisfy the team's in-space requirements, I'm going to use that as the source of the new project. I'm going to give it a name, leave the key and project lead, and click Submit. So I've created the project. Let's have a look at the configuration. I'm going to change the description and give it a more appropriate icon. Add the description. Save details. Okay, let's go back to the configuration. Let's have a look at this in slightly more detail. Okay, so you can see it's using the dev schemes. Let's compare this to the existing Rocketeers app project, which I've got open in another tab. Let's go back to the new project. As you can see, they're pretty much identical. So the issue type schemes, workflow schemes and workflows, screen schemes and the screens, field schemes and the two field configurations, the priority scheme, permissions and notifications are the same. Note that the roles, versions and components are unique to the projects and are not shared. Also, the project lead is different because I created this project as Dakota. That would need to be updated. I still need to set the project admin roles and board admins for this new project, but because we've covered that in a previous lab, I'm not going to do it here. Now, what would happen if I modified one of these schemes? How many projects would they affect? Well, the answer is it would affect every project that shares the scheme. So in this case, the Rocketeers app and this new music app project. Having shared configurations like this makes it easy to apply changes across multiple projects. Okay, let's move on to the second exercise. In this second exercise, we're going to apply these new standard schemes to an existing project that's in use. I'm already logged in as Dakota, so let's remind ourselves of why the teams in space are standardizing these various schemes. Let's start by looking at the issue type schemes. You can see here that many of these schemes have exactly the same issues in them. Remember that lots of schemes can affect performance, plus they are more work to manage. Let's have a look at some of the other schemes. A look at workflow schemes. A look at screen schemes. And issue type screen schemes. Now, having looked at all these, you can see that pretty much all the projects have their own schemes which aren't shared with other projects. Okay, so let's start looking at how to consolidate the use of these multiple schemes. So first things first. If you are making changes that will affect projects, I always take a backup first, as changes can affect the data if issues need to be migrated. So let's go to the backup admin page. So to do this, I need to be a JIRA systems administrator, so I'll log out and log back in as Mitch Davis. So let's look at the backup system page. This page allows you to create a backup of your entire JIRA instance. The backup will be placed on the JIRA server in the directory /home/JIRA/data/export. However, this path may be different on your system depending on the operating system and the configuration. Let's give the backup file a name. I like to include the date in my backup file names, as it makes it easier to identify them. OK, let's click Backup. Note the backup does not contain the attachments directory. In a production system, I would manually create a backup of this directory or folder, but I'm not going to do that here. OK, so it's completed. Let's look at the System Restore admin page. A word of warning here. Doing a full restore will wipe out all existing data in your JIRA instance if users have made changes between that time the backup was taken and now these changes will be lost. However, you can carry out project restores. Let's have a look at that page. This page allows you to restore a project from a backup file you've created. This will not overwrite the entire JIRA instance. OK, I just wanted to show you those pages. Let me log out and log back in as Dakota. Now I'm going to apply the dev schemes we've created to an existing project that has data. Let's go to the Rocketeers app project. I've got that open in another tab. Remind myself of the schemes. OK. Let's go back to the other tab. OK, here I'm going to navigate to the Tools project and have a look at its configuration. Now you can see that these projects have different configuration schemes. For example, the Tools project does not have the same issue types. So what's going to happen when we change the issue type scheme in the Tools project? Well, we're going to have to carry out a migration where we will need to map the existing issue types that are not in the new scheme to issue types in the new scheme. OK, let me click on the Tools Scrum issue type scheme. I want to change this, so click on Actions, use a different scheme. I want to use an existing scheme, so I need to find the dev one we created earlier. There it is. Scroll to the bottom, click OK. Now we've started the migration and it's telling me that the task issue type will need to be mapped to another issue type. And you can see there are 4 issues that will be affected. OK, let's click on Next. Now on this page I have to choose which issue type to map these task issues to. I'm going to select the engineering task. Click Next. Good. Here you can see that nothing needs to be done. All the task issue field values will be retained, so I can click on Next. Now we see a summary of what's going to be changed. Quickly look at that. It looks OK to me, so I'm going to click on Finish. Now that's done. Let's look at the dev issue type screen scheme again. Probably going to be at the bottom. There it is. Now you can see that this scheme is shared with 3 projects: the Rocketeers app, the Space Music app, and Tools. Note that the issue migrations cannot split an existing issue type into 2 or more issue types. There's only a one-to-one mapping. If you wanted to split issues, I'd first add a label to the issues you want to split, migrate in the usual way, and then search for the issues with the label you created, and then do a bulk change on those. OK, let's go back to the Tools project and change another scheme. OK, let's have a look at the permission and notification schemes. At the moment, you can see the project is using the default schemes for both permissions and notifications. So by applying the schemes we configured earlier in the labs, we will add restrictions on the permissions and also mean fewer notifications will be sent for reporters. In a real-world JIRA, I talk to the stakeholders for this project to make sure they understand the changes and that the changes are appropriate for the project. Let me change the permission scheme first. Click on Default Software Scheme. Okay, so I need to click on Actions, use a different scheme. Let me find the Dev one, Dev Permission Scheme. Click Associate. You can see now why adding Dev to the start of all the schemes makes it easier to identify them. I need to update the project roles, project lead, project administrators and the default board administrators, but as I've previously shown you in an earlier lab, I'm not going to do this now. Okay, now let's go change the notification scheme. Click on Notifications. Click on Actions. Use a different scheme. Find the Dev one. And click Associate. Done. Now to the fun part, the workflows. So let's click on Workflows. Okay, I'm just going to remind myself of the existing workflow. So I'm just going to click on that. Okay, so that's what it's using. Let me remind myself of the new workflows. So we'll look at the dev code workflow. Now you can see that this is completely different. Let's go back. Let's have a look at the JIRA workflow. Okay, so that's also different, but similar to the dev workflow apart from the resolve status. Let's go back to the tools project and have a look at its agile board. We can see here there are 3 columns that match the workflow and there are issues in those columns. It looks like there are 10 issues. Okay, so let's change the workflows. So let's go back to project settings. Workflows. I need to click on the Switch Scheme button. I need to select the appropriate dev workflow. And click Associate. Right, on this page you can see it's giving me a set of options to select a destination status for the project's issues. On the left you can see the issues, with the number in the little grey box indicating how many issues need to be migrated. On the right you can see the applicable statuses in the old workflow and a drop-down list of the statuses in the new workflow to migrate the issues to. This is why we create the backup, as if you get it wrong here you are changing the data and it's very hard to change back, especially if your project has lots of issues and mappings to apply. Notice that in some of the grey boxes you see a 0. It's safe to ignore these as there are no issues to migrate. Okay, so let's begin the mapping. For all the to-do statuses, I'm going to leave them as mapped to open. For done, I'm going to map them to closed. Looking in the numbers in the grey boxes, and they add up to the total number of issues we saw on the tools board. Okay, so let's go for it. I'm going to click on Associate. Once you click on the Associate button, you cannot stop the process, so make sure you're happy with your changes before you apply them. Measure twice, cut once. I'll acknowledge this, and let's check the change. Okay, now I can see the JIRA workflow is being used for these issue types. And for the story, bug and features request issues, we see the dev code workflow is being used. Let's move on to the screen schemes. Okay, let me change this scheme. Click on Actions, use a different scheme. Dev, and click Associate. Now here we can see that the bug issue tab has its own screen scheme, and the remaining issues have another. Both start with dev, so it's all good. Let's have a look at what's left to change. Click on Summary. The field scheme still needs to be done. Let's click on that. Let me click on Actions, use a different scheme. Select the dev one, click associate. And it wants me to reindex. I'll hold off from doing this now. Remember, you should leave any reindexing until you've completed all of your changes. So let me close that. And let's check the summary again to see what's left. Priority still needs to be changed. So let's go to the priority schemes page. Here we can see the priority schemes. I want to associate the dev scheme I created earlier to the tools project. So I click on associate. Need to find the project. Remember, you need to control click here, otherwise you'll deselect Space Music app and Rocketeers app. So click next. Now you can see the scheme is associated with 3 projects. Let's go back to the tools project. So click back to project. And let's carry out a quick visual check. So issue type scheme is okay. Workflow scheme is okay. Screen schemes are okay. Fields, priorities, permissions and notifications. They all look correct. So now what's left? Well, we still need to update the project's agile board to reflect the workflow changes we've made. So let's click on the active sprint. Now here you can see there are only 2 issues. Where are the others that were here? Let's have a look at the configuration. Okay, we're in the column view. Okay, we're not seeing them as they are in statuses that are not mapped to the columns. Let's fix this. Let's get rid of the now unused statuses by dragging them off the board. Let me add a new column for in-code review. And then drag the status to that. And move close to done, open to to-do, and reopened to in progress. Let's have a look at the board now. That looks correct. Let's carry out some other tests. So I'll need to create an issue as a developer. So I need to log in as Kevin Campbell. So I'll click on create, select the tools project, select bug, give it a summary, give it a short description, and click create. That's been created. Let's go back to the board. And have a look at the backlog. And there it is. Let's move the issue I created into the current sprint. Let's confirm the scope change. And let's see if it's appeared on the board. There it is. It's in the to-do column. Now let me drag this into in progress. That works. Okay, to in-code review. Okay, so we need to select the resolution. Remember, we need to give it a time. And click resolve. Okay, that's worked. So let's move it to done. Can I reopen it by dragging it to in progress? It looks like it's all working. Let me check the issue itself. Okay, you can see the developer field has been set, so this looks like it's working, so I'm happy. Now I can reindex, so I need to log out and log back in as Dakota again. Okay, so let's get the indexing page. Click reindex. Wait for this to finish. Shouldn't take too long, and click Acknowledge. Okay, so that's that for the second exercise. Let's move on to the third exercise. In this final exercise, we're going to do some housekeeping. Now we've made changes to some of the existing project configuration, it's more than likely we have some schemes that are no longer in use. So we can get rid of them and have a tidy up. There's no performance benefit of doing this, but it keeps the admin pages uncluttered and will make your life as an administrator a lot easier. I like to keep a tidy ship, so I regularly carry out housekeeping tasks to keep things neat and tidy. Let's go look at the issue type schemes again. Let's look at the list. Okay, you can see a lot of these are not associated with any projects. The test ones are probably for projects that have been created and then deleted. Also, the tools one is no longer being used as we changed the tools project configuration earlier. Let me get rid of one of these as an example. So find test one and delete. Okay, so that's now gone. If you want, you can get rid of the others. A word of warning here, if you have multiple JIRA admins, they may be creating new schemes to associate with other projects. Check with them first before deleting schemes, as you may remove their work. This goes for deleting anything you're not entirely sure of. Let's move on to the workflows. Scroll to the bottom, and expand the inactive ones. Again, a lot of test ones in here, plus the tools one we replaced earlier. Let me delete the test one again as an example. Okay. So that's gone. Let's have a look at statuses. Quite a lot of these are only used in a single workflow. Also note the status with the description. This status is managed internally by JIRA software. These have been created when board administrators create new columns on a board, and so JIRA adds a new status for that column. You can see there are some strange and some confusing status names here. Some of them also look like resolutions and not statuses, for example fixed and won't do. Let's look at one of them. So this is used in the Software Simplified Workflow for Project SD. Let's have a closer look at that. Oh dear, look at this. This is usually what happens when you let all your users in your organization configure board workflows by adding columns and statuses. If you have a large JIRA instance with a lot of teams and a lot of processes all seemingly out of control, it will complicate your life as a JIRA administrator. Applying shared configurations wherever possible will make your life and the users' lives easier, as projects will be consistent. So if a team member moves from one project to another, the processes will be the same. It's not always possible to use shared configuration everywhere, but you should aim to share as much as you can. Let's have a look at the custom fields. Again, here you can see there's some very specific fields. For example, Q1 sales goal, Q1 marketing goal, and so on. These look like they're aimed at a specific group or department. Now, a better way of managing this would be to have more generic fields, for example, Q1 goal. These fields can still be used by both teams and also any other teams that wanted to collect data like this. Let me log out and log back in as another developer, Jennifer Evans. Let me create a new issue. So I want to create a bug in the screen design project. Wow, that's a lot of fields. There's no way I'm going to fill all of them in. Now, does this look like a screen that someone has given a bit of thought in designing? I wouldn't say it is. Screens like this will frustrate your users, so try to keep your screens to the absolute minimum number of fields you need. It will make your users happy, you'll get better quality of data, and it's less work to administrate. That's it for this final lab. I hope you found them enlightening, so it's back to the course.